I'm Alex Del Sordo, and this is a Rower's Choice Athlete Profile. Well, if you've seen who we're interviewing today, you're going to know that we're with Clark Dean. And this guy, he's a kid. What am I saying? He's not a man yet. I mean, the guy's like 21 years old, but he is one of the best American athletes we have, especially at the collegiate level. And we're doing an athlete profile on Clark Dean. So, Clark, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, now you're in sunny Florida right now, obviously.
Yep. Yep.
Like, what a lucky man you are. Jeez Louise.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
So
I'm
where are
definitely
you
appreciating that.
tell the world, we're gonna start with like where are you from, Clark? Like where were you born and raised?
Yeah. So I'm from Sarasota, Florida. Born and raised there.
And in Sarasota, when you were kind of growing up, you watched Bradenton and Nathan Benderson Park kind of grow and build. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, I think we rode there. I mean, I rode there in middle school a few times before there was anything there, and then obviously it developed over the course of high school, and it continues to develop today. And I'll go back there every time I'm home, whether it's a break or whatnot. And it's always cool to see how far it's come in the last month or year, or whatever it is.
It's the best course I think in the world. So we're going to do an athlete profile. We talk about the rowing background, and then we kind of go a little bit of what's happening in your life today. So when did you pick up an oar? Where did you row in high school, and where are you at today in college?
Yeah, so I started rowing at Sarasota Crew the summer going into my, I guess, like sixth grade year of middle school. I started because I went to this school that was like, it was actually a mile and a half from the crew site.
Wow.
So just geographically speaking, it was right next to it. And, you know, Sarasota Crew did then and continues to do now a good job of recruiting kids from this middle and high school to come row. So my friends and I, we signed up for a camp. We all liked it. And then we started rowing on the middle school program.
So this is crazy. I mean, you're sixth grade. I can't remember what I was like in sixth grade. How did you know to row? Was it your parents that said, "Hey, Clark, you should try this," or did you actually find it yourself?
No, it was definitely mainly the parents. I mean, my mom was really active through high school and college, and my dad always wants us involved in sports. So I think my family was kind of the standard case you hear with rowers, where we had tried all the other sports, did rowing or did swimming for a long time, did like lacrosse, did golf, tennis, the whole gamut of them, and we were never super excited about any of them, but I have three siblings, and we all tried rowing and all really liked it right from the get go.
So you're in sixth grade. You're rowing. It's kind of part time. You move into high school, and you're at Sarasota Crew with I believe Casey Galvanic, right?
Yep.
So he was your head coach. What was your high school experience like? Because I mean, look, I know. I mean, you pull really good scores, man. So you versus everybody else in high school, there's a clear gap. So at what point did you start seeing serious speed? What kind of races were you guys doing at high school?
Yeah, I mean, I think the experience overall was great. Obviously, I have no other high school experience to compare it to, but I really, I enjoyed it. It's a great team, and there's a great team culture and great coaches, great facilities. Like it's definitely it's like the ideal place to grow up rowing, right? I lived about 15 minutes from Benderson and then 15 minutes from the crew site, where it's south, and we were on an intercoastal. So I was like in this growing rowing hub in the world. And compared to somewhere like the Northeast, I could row year round compared to having to you know have a winter training season, which I now have to do at Harvard. But it was nice to not have to do that for.
Yeah, no, I went to mainland high school in South Jersey, and we had 3 months guaranteed on the erg,
Yeah,
and then I went to GW in Marietta, and I was like, I just wanted to vomit. It was awful.
right,
You're on the erg all the time.
right.
But like, when did you start seeing serious speed come out of your rowing? Like, at what time did you start seeing your scores really drop?
Yeah, well, I think so the first year I really was competitive about it. And we had the middle school program at Sarasota. It's mainly about getting the kids excited about the sport. So we'll row 2-3 times a week. It's pretty recreational. But then my novice year, which was my eighth grade year, actually, I was a lightweight and started training pretty full on, 5, 6, 7 days a week, whatever. And then I guess that spring I was going okay. I was in the Sarasota lightweight eight. we went to nationals, which made me, even more pumped and wanting to do well. And then that summer, I put on a ton of weight, and like from youth nationals, my 8th grade year to 9th grade year, I put on like 50 pounds or something, and
Oh,
then started getting a lot faster that year, I think.
so your sophomore year, you're starting to pack. So you're packing that weight on. Can you remember what your 2K score was in that sophomore to junior time frame?
Yeah, well, so I put on the weight actually during freshman year. So 8th grade, I raced as the
Okay.
lightweight, and then freshman year, I was my first year racing heavyweight, and I think by the end of my freshman year, I was right around 200 pounds, and started. I think my like best 2K at the end of freshman year was like a 620 around there.
All right, look, man, that's like dirty fast, right? Like my freshman year, 658, and I was stupid proud of that. And you're going 620s. How do you? Okay, is it just natural, like in your family, to have that big growth spurt from 8th to 9th grade? Because that 50 pounds is obnoxious. I mean, were you lifting?
Yeah.
Were you
No,
what were
I
you
mean,
doing?
yeah, I was lifting somewhat, not a crazy amount. Like I think Sarasota's good about making the lifts rowing specific.
Mhm.
But I think it's mainly, it's a mixture of I'm growing quickly to begin with, and then through the spring of my 8th grade year, I was holding back, growing to stay at weight.
Oh,
So as the season went on, it was a lot harder to be at 150 by nationals than it was at regionals than the race before. So it was like the second the racing was over at nationals, I'm like, okay, I can eat as much as I want. Then it was just like catching up with all the growing that I've missed over the past few months.
man, no. So I followed your career. I mean, you're 21 years old. This is like ridiculous.
20 years old.
But yeah, so we were following your career, and you did, unlike a lot of other high school kids, you did a single and an eight. So you rode in both classes of boats, and you've won at both levels. What's your preference? Like, where do you like to be, and where do you find the most joy in rowing?
Yeah, I get that question a lot, and it's tough because there are there are aspects to each boat class that are just like so great, and you think of mean the world when you're in that boat, but then you switch and you're like, okay, this is pretty nice too. Like for example, to row the single, all it takes is me thinking, okay, I want to go row the single, and then a boat, oars, body of water. Where to row an eight, there's a lot more logistics that go into getting an eight to practice than a single. I have to find a coxswain, find 7 other rowers, find this big boat, find 8 oars, a cox, but it's like, it's so easy to just get out in a single and do exactly what you want when you want to. But then, of course, when you go to team boat, there's the aspect of having your teammates, having your friends, racing with people, working together, which is obviously great as well.
Well, didn't you see, or I mean, don't you see at Harvard, because a lot of the athletes are up to your caliber, right? And you're racing with guys that are, I mean, they've been doing this for their entire careers. Don't you find that you elevate your ability when you're with them in that boat, and that you have that coach and the battle of the two eights?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely something to be said for, side by side mixed boats and the added competitiveness that comes with, or like the added training bonus, I guess, that comes with the competitiveness of like a team program for sure.
So when you got recruited to Harvard, what kind of how was that decision made among you and your family, and yourself? I mean, you obviously had the pick of a litter. Like, you could have gone anywhere you wanted. Why Harvard? And yeah, so why Harvard?
Well, I think one thing that I kept in mind was like, I think I kept my mind open, but I think the other thing was I wasn't too worried about where I ended up, because the thing is, at the end of the day, they're all great schools, which is something that I think rowers are really lucky to get, where the top rowing schools are the top schools in the country. So
True.
it's not like, okay, well, do I want to have rowing or academics? All the top rowing schools are top schools in the country. So knowing that, I don't think it was too like stressful. Like people say I pick and think they're going to make like the wrong choice. But I mean, there were just a ton of factors that led to like Harvard being the best option for me. I think, it's the boathouse is right on campus, and it's, I have that versatility to row and train whenever I want. And then it's obviously a great school, and the rowing team is really fast, and they're great guys on it, and the coaches are great, and then there's no drawbacks in any way as I saw, or as I see now. I mean, it's great.
That's a perfect answer. You've obviously been doing interviews because you're very polished.
Thank you.
So I'm thinking like when I was in high school or when I was in college, I had guys that I looked up to and said, "Man, I want to be like that." So when I was rowing, it was Brian Volpenheim. Brian Volpenheim, stroking the eight, winning the gold medal. Jr. and Bal, like these are the guys that I looked up to. But we did a really bad job. When I say we, I mean the sport of rowing, elevating those athletes. Like we didn't promote them. They're not superstars. So when you were 17, 18, and now 20, who are the guys that you look up to and say, man, I want to be like that when I get older?
Yeah, no, I think it changes because I think for a long time before I got to the senior level or even the college level, it was, I watched the single and I'm like, oh, these guys are incredible, like Mahe, Demir Martin, all of them just incredible athletes, which they are. But now it's kind of funny because now, since I've been at the training center for, I mean, I guess like 11 months at this point, because I kind of went out there in June of 2019. So now that I've been at the training center, I've just been like full on, team boats, sweeping, training center, all that whole lifestyle. Now it's definitely switched to like Brian Volpenheim and all the U.S. alums who are just who won in 2004, have medaled around then in various boats. So yeah, it's definitely changed over the years. But
So
I'd say
are you big into like other sports? Like what would you say the sport that you want to watch every day or every week? What's that sport? What do you want to watch?
I'd say I'm more into recreationally playing other sports than watching. But I generally keep up with like the NFL or college football.
Okay, so this I'm leading you down a path here. So,
Yeah,
we have these professional athletes that kids at sixth grade start looking up to, and
right.
the media builds them up and builds them up to be superstars. How do you think, as a future superstar of our sport, how do you think we elevate you or others so that when you're in sixth or seventh grade and you want to row, I know who Clark Dean is? How do you think we do that as a sport?
It's a tough question, and there's no easy answer. Like if there's an easy answer, then it wouldn't be a problem in the first place. I think it's really tough, and the problem lies in the relative unpopularity of rowing compared to obviously golf, football, baseball. Like it's tough to sell a sport where it's tough to sell a racing sport with a straight course with no twists or turns or bumps or crashes. That like it's what makes the sport great in a lot of ways, like the purity of it. But it's not as exciting. Like the most exciting thing in rowing races are like if something crazy happens and someone catches a crab or something goes terribly off plan. Like that's those are the craziest things that can happen in the sport. But then the higher you get in terms of level of rowing, the less likely that is to happen, and the less likely it is for a boat to come from behind with
Mm.
500 meters down open water. So I think inherently it's the higher the level of rowing gets, the almost less exciting and the less variables there are in some ways. So I think it takes like a large amount of you have to know the sport really well and be involved with it really well to really respect rowing and watching rowing at the highest level, which makes it a really tough model for like a entertaining sport to watch.
Continue to be amazed by your answers. So, I mean, you're doing a great job. You know, we think here at Rower's Choice that if we shorten the distance and instead of having 25, 30 athletes on a team, you have 10 athletes that can row single and the eight and the four, and you have multiple people winning. Like, is swimming really that fun to watch? I
Right.
mean, kind of it is. I mean, but it's only fun when you know Michael Phelps, you
Yeah.
know the national team, and you know the high intensity of the short
Right.
distances. So, like, we think that that's the future of our sport. You said something here a couple minutes ago. You decided to redshirt yourself to get into the Olympics for this year. There's not a lot of people that make that decision. And we recently talked to someone who did the same thing as a female back when she was running for Cal. Was that a difficult decision for you and your family to make, to take a year off from college and postpone that?
I don't think so. I mean, there are obviously like drawbacks. There are pros and cons to any decision, but I had it in the back of my head for a while. Even when I was choosing a college, I like to keep the option open, and that was always a question I'd have for a coach. And that was just one aspect of what Harvard and the coaches there did really well was, Charlie was very open. He said, if it makes sense for you to take it and you have a good shot, then absolutely we'll do everything we can to support you. And that's what ended up happening. I went out right after Harvard Yale my freshman year, went out to the team, um, went into the selection mix, then was in the straight four, and then it just made sense to postpone the year. And I'm not losing any eligibility from it because I have 5 calendar years to race 4 times, so it kind of seemed like there was no reason not to, almost.
So then what's going to happen for you now that it's postponed? I mean, obviously that throws a wrench in everything. What's the plan now for you for 2021?
Yeah, there's no plan really. There's just so many variables and things up in the air. It's not even worth like musing about. We don't even know if school will happen, if rowing will happen, if classes will be online, what the qualification procedures look like. But I think on both sides, whether it's Mike at the training center or Charlie at Harvard, they're supportive and open to work with one another, work with me for whatever works best for all parties involved.
You're a very lucky kid. You have Charlie, you have Tatey, you have Casey. You have 3 fantastic coaches.
Yeah.
In your career, and you're going to continue to develop. Who would you say, not putting you on the spot here, is the hardest to row for? Like, who is the one out of those 3 guys that it just makes it tough, or makes your life hard, or is difficult to? I guess they're not difficult people. They're brilliant at what they do. But who's the hardest to row for, would you say?
Well, I think it depends. Like, it's tough to say because rowing for any of them, like, the whole experience changes how far you are from a race, who you're rowing with. Like, if you're out there for a random tech paddle with any of them, it's totally fine. But then they're all 3 of these coaches, that you mentioned, are all they're good for a reason, right? They're good at what they do because they know when you can relax and whatever, and then when you have to focus, pieces, changes need to be made, something needs to happen, switches need to be made, some brutal workouts need to be assigned. They're all equally as aware of where the athletes are, where they need to be for the racing, where they need to be at that moment, and what they need to be doing to get to the next level.
I look at Mike Tatey, and he's a legend. I mean, the guy walks on water here, in the rowing world. When you first got in a boat and he was right next to you, I mean, were there butterflies in your stomach, or were you just game on, I'm ready to go, I know what I'm doing?
Well, I think there's obviously a bit of nerves that come with any new coach, and kind of seeing, what are their initial thoughts? What do I have to change? What do I have to think about? Yeah, for sure. But I think the first time I actually rowed for him wasn't when I first went out after Harvard Yale. I had gone out on some camp before, but he had seen me row before, and it was, it's always going to be a little bit of added nerves when it's another variable in the mix. But yeah, I'd say so. There were some butterflies for sure.
I mean, I know that I would have it, but I look at him differently than you do. So Clark, there's a lot of talk about you among the younger coaches, among the younger athletes, and they use this phrase, the LeBron James of rowing. Have you heard that phrase? Have you heard people call you that in over the last couple of years?
No, that's new for me.
Well, you have a very good trajectory in your career, and I want to ask you, like, what is your future goals? Is it to race the Olympics, to win a gold medal, 3 or 4 cycles? I mean, where do you see yourself in the next 5 or 10 years with this sport?
Yeah, I think sometimes you just have to take it year by year. Like, if you asked me 4 months ago, I would have a totally different answer than for what I was planning this summer than I do now. And I think I have to be willing to make changes and be adaptable. But obviously, I really like the sport right now. I like racing in team boats and in a single. A high priority of mine is racing for Harvard as many more times as I can. Just 3 more seasons, And then obviously a high priority of mine is getting to the 2021 Olympics. And then, I absolutely want to keep rowing after this cycle, after I graduate, and hopefully a cycle after that. But we'll see. I mean, you just have to play it by ear, and I have to see where I'm at professionally in life and everything else. But yeah, absolutely.
What is your goal for profession? Like, where do you want to be after you graduate Harvard?
Yeah, also a good question. I have a job right now that I started the spring of my freshman year that I've been working, that I've really been enjoying. But as far as professional long-term aspirations go, it's tough to say. I think even with my major or concentration, we call it, I haven't decided yet, and I think it's up in the air between a few different things that I like, and I think just as I continue to go, it'll kind of narrow and specify.
I love how you answer these questions without specification. You do a very good job of like getting me almost to an answer, and then you pull back real quick. I mean, so the Harvard Yale race. I want to end with this. We talked about in a previous Coaches Yelling. So we do this thing called Coaches Yelling, and there's a panel of coaches or panel of athletes, and we had asked the question, which is the best dual race in men's rowing, right? And you know the top ones: Harvard, Yale, Cambridge, Oxford, and then Washington, Cal. When you walked into Harvard and you started training with those guys in that boathouse, is your focus with Harvard to win the Harvard Yale race, and is that just the main thing that you guys go after, or are you also discussing IRA goals? Like, I just kind of want to know, like, from a perspective of a current athlete, how serious and powerful is the Harvard Yale race to those athletes?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's something that I was super curious to get involved in as a high schooler, because you always hear of it, but you never, it's not like there's live streams that everyone watches, and it's definitely a lot less, it's a lot more understated than the IRAs or Eastern Sprints even. But yeah, I think once I got there and got involved with the team and whatnot and started racing, I think I would not say that the team doesn't focus on sprints and IRAs and whatnot. We absolutely do, but Harvard Yale seems like the peak of the season, I'd say, for me. That's the climactic race at the end, and that's something that's crazy. That was crazy to me before I went to Harvard, and I think I definitely, because before going there, I would always think like, oh well, like IRAs is the nationals, Harvard Yale's just a race afterwards. Where now, after racing at Harvard for a year, if it was between winning nationals and winning Harvard Yale, I would not super quickly be like, well, just win nationals. You're the fastest in the country, like just win nationals. Now it's like, like, well, what would we get at nationals? Like I definitely winning Harvard Yale would be incredible, and it's definitely now, after rowing with Harvard for a year, it's a lot more important to me than I assumed it would have been.
So do you? I'm so interested in sort of how that race develops, right? Are you just naturally fired up at Yale and say, gosh, I just want to get those guys, and like you hate them? Because like the funny thing is, a lot of those guys you're racing with at the elite level, or you're racing against them from other countries, like do they just breed it into you that you just have to hate Yale for like 3 weeks while you're training?
Yeah, well, I don't think it's 3 weeks as much as your kind of whole time at Harvard, inside and outside of rowing. I mean, obviously, like at the end of the day, it's not like I actually resent anyone who currently goes there or went there. Like, they're rowers and they're guys my age who I'm sure I'd get along with if the roles were reversed or if we're on the same team. So I know it's all just for fun at the end of the day. But yeah, absolutely, it is just a rivalry that's stoked from the first email you'll get from the coach or the captain or whatever. So it's definitely fun to just get as excited as you can.
So you should be able to answer this question. How old is the Harvard Yale race? How many years has it been going on?
I think we are at 150. I think this was the 155th, maybe. Because the 150th, I want to say, was like 2014 or 2016. So it's somewhere up there.
And who's won more? Come on, you should know this.
Harvard, of course. It's almost 2-1, I think. It's something like that. It's like 90-50 or something. But.
Oh man, Clark Dean, this has been a blast interviewing you for Athletes Profiles. I wish you all the luck for the national team representing with you very well. And I'm sure that we'll be following your career in the future, man. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I
Awesome.
had a lot of fun.